Good evening. The Indian Army struck Pakistani posts across the line of control and, in an uncharacteristic move, released a video as proof. It was called a punitive attack against the Pakistanis pushing infiltration into India. The response came not from the Pakistan Army, but their media. One channel put out a video in response, showing their forces over the Siachen Glacier. They reported the activation of forward bases, which means that Pakistanis could hit Indian targets in less than 10 minutes. As it turns out, all of this was fabricated. WION independently confirmed with sources in the government and the army in Pakistan, none of it happened. So why did the media report it? On Gravitas tonight, we bring you the inside story of the video war. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay, the headlines this Wednesday. The Trump administration proposes cutting $344 million in financial aid to Pakistan, including $100 million in military funding. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte threatens to impose martial law to combat terrorism after Islamist militants behead a policeman and take Catholic hostages. Taiwan rules in favor of same-sex marriage, the first in Asia to do so, as Indonesia calls homosexuality a national threat, deploying a special task force to target gays. And after touring the Middle East, the US President reaches the Vatican. Pope Francis asks First Lady Melania, "What do you feed Donald Trump?" Also on the show, our special focus, we're looking at what's happening in Nepal, the political churn, what's cooking in Kathmandu. And why are Chinese state-owned companies wary about the president's ambitious One Belt, One Road project. But we are starting this evening with the latest on the Manchester investigation. A day after 22 people died and 59 were injured in the worst terror attack in that city, the UK has objected to American authorities leaking information on the investigation. UK Interior Ministry has said that sensitive information about the probe was placed in public domain by American security sources. Police in the UK have arrested 3 more men in connection with the attack. In Manchester, investigators believe the attacker could have links with a terrorist organization. Meanwhile, Britain has raised the terror alert to the level of highest, that is critical.
I want to reassure all Londoners and visitors that we are doing everything possible to protect our city. As your Mayor, I'm in constant contact with the Metropolitan Police and we're liaising closely with the government and security services. Our emergency services prepare day in, day out for these situations. Our plans are well rehearsed and well prepared. I would urge all Londoners and visitors to remain calm and vigilant and to report anything suspicious to the police.
Armed Forces personnel have been deployed on the streets across the country and at Buckingham Palace in particular to boost security, with authorities not ruling out the possibility of more attacks in the near future. Prime Minister Theresa May said the army will boost security at key sites across the UK.
This means that armed police officers responsible for duties such as guarding key sites will be replaced by members of the armed forces, which will allow the police to significantly increase the number of armed officers on patrol in key locations. You might also see military personnel deployed at certain events, such as concerts and sports matches, helping the police to keep the public safe. I do not want the public to feel unduly alarmed. We have faced a serious terrorist threat in our country for many years, and the operational response I have just outlined is a proportionate and sensible response to the threat that our security experts judge we face. I ask everybody to be vigilant.
Teresa may also confirm the identity of the Manchester suicide bomber as 22-year-old British-Libyan Salman Abidi. WION's Mandi Clark was reporting from Manchester, and she's joining us live this evening from London. Good evening, Mandi. Let's start with the latest on the investigation. And going by the number of arrests, it is evident now that this wasn't a lone wolf attack.
Yes, it seems to be a quick-moving investigation. And to a further indication that it is likely not a lone wolf attack is that move to make the terror threat critical. That implies a plot is imminent, a terror attack is imminent. And I was speaking to a counterterrorism officer earlier, and he said, look, they don't just raise it just because there has been an attack. They must imply there is another plot underway in the later stages of an attack. So that is that would imply that he was a part of a larger network that was planning more attacks. And what's interesting about this attack compared to, let's say, the Westminster attack just a few months ago is the level of sophistication. So this is a bomb that was well made and well designed. He would have had to have training to get it, and they expect that he would have met and been trained up by a bomb maker. And so the worry is there are other operatives like him in Britain planning similar attacks and have that level of skill and sophistication to make these homemade bombs.
And how are the common people responding to all of this? Of course, they have no choice but to go about their lives. But is there an atmosphere of fear, of terror?
There is a marked apprehension. So there is a worry. Yesterday, there was definitely just simply shock. They were just absorbing what had happened. But speaking to people today just on the streets, it's all that people talk about. But also you're hearing people saying they're going to avoid places where there are going to be big crowds, avoiding public transportation. And also the government is encouraging people not to gather in big crowds. The changing of the guard, which it happens outside of Buckingham Palace daily, that was cancelled today. The UK Parliament has stopped all tours and events for the near future. So certainly even the government is dissuading people from gathering in large crowds because that could be a potential target.
And how does it impact the upcoming election? Barely 2 weeks away. Campaigning was halted yesterday. Has it resumed? And do people have that kind of confidence that they can go out in those numbers and cast their vote in this situation?
It hasn't quite resumed today, the campaigning, but we can expect campaigning is going to start in the coming days again. There will be a very tight security when it comes to election day. You can expect to see armed police and military out patrolling because it will be such a high-profile day to stage a terror attack. People I spoke to haven't suggested they won't go to the polls, but it's still a few weeks away. So closer to the time, we'll get a better sense of how nervous people are still. The political parties that will likely do well out of this attack, if you can say that, are political parties who are strong on boosting up the security forces, who are strong on terrorism. And that currently is the Tory stronghold, the ruling Conservative Party, where Labour has always been weak when it comes to security forces, especially under the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn, because he's a pacifist and he's always called for de-escalating and taking police off the streets, will take it, not going into war. He was part of the Stop the War coalition. He's not seen as a tough leader, and that could go against him, certainly in the backdrop of this attack.
Right, and we're looking at all those heartwarming messages. Our thoughts with the families of those who lost their loved ones in Manchester. Mandi Clark, thanks very much. Appreciate you joining us this evening with that update from the UK. Now, a Pakistani army video claiming to show damage being inflicted on the Indian Army's positions along the line of control in Kashmir. Also, a Pakistani TV channel reporting a flight by their Air Force fighters over the Siachen Glacier. The report by Sama TV also quoted sources saying that all of the Pakistan Armed Forces forward operating bases have been fully operationalized. Now, the Indian Army has rejected the video as fake. The Indian Air Force has said that there was no violation of the Indian airspace in Siachen. The report about Pakistan operationalizing forward bases was also refuted by WION's correspondent in Islamabad after contacting official sources there. The Sama TV report, in fact, appeared linked to the visit by the Pakistan Air Force chief to a forward base in Skardu, where he flew a Mirage. He was also quoted as saying, "Our response to any aggression by the enemy will be such that their future generations will also remember it," which is pretty straightforward India-Pakistan fighting talk. The point is whether there's a media war on in addition to the fireworks on the line of control. If one looks back, the trigger for the latest round of media fire may have been the Jadhav affair and India's decision to appeal to the International Court of Justice. The court proceedings were covered live on Indian television, both when India's counsel Harish Salve made his arguments and when the Pakistan lawyer Khawar Qureshi made his. It appears Salve was blanked out by the Pakistani media, suggesting that they'd completely accepted the army's line. It's important to distinguish between the civil elected government and the army in Pakistan. The former is weak and ineffective. The latter, having ruled Pakistan for decades, manipulates from behind the scenes. The Pakistani media, we know, routinely bashes the civilian government on everything from misgovernance to corruption. But criticism of the army is subtle at best and often roundabout. This is because it is the army's narrative of Pakistan, its origins and future evolution that has shaped and seeped into the public consciousness because of decades of military rule. It is routine for the media to carry press releases of the army's public relations. The media towing the army line adds nothing positive to the India-Pakistan dynamic, we can say. A letter by the Indian Air Force chief to his officers is blown up to suggest a conflict on the horizon. Pictures and reports from Kashmir usually focus on stone pelters. There was a time when the Indian cartoon character Chota Bheem was viewed by a section of the Pakistani media as an Indian conspiracy to control the minds of Pakistani children. And with me in the studio, former High Commissioner to Pakistan, G. Parthasarathi. You've seen this report, you've seen the kind of reactions and responses that come in Pakistan. What do you make of this video war? Did the Pakistanis bomb their own posts and then create a fake video?
You know, one must understand what the Siachen issue is all about. Neither the Pakistan army nor anybody else from Pakistan is within 100 kilometers of the Siachen glacier. The Pakistanis are positioned to the west of a western range of mountains called the Saltoro range. So even to sort of refer to this issue as the Siachen issue is factually wrong, because and it's done because the old agreement said it will proceed north to the glacier, so everybody read it that way. This was the agreement signed in 1949. But the actual reality is they are nowhere near Siachen. And in fact, there is this mythology created within Pakistan that somehow they are fighting for the glacier. They're nowhere near the glacier. In fact, there's the entire huge high Saltoro range which separates them. Now, coming to this particular thing on the Air Force, my view is generally in Pakistan, unlike the army, the Air Force is not politicized. It is professional. You can talk to them as professionals. I knew their second and most famous Air Chief, Air Marshal Noor Khan, played tennis with him, was a good friend.
Right.
And generally they are very professional. Right now, I think what is happening is the army is hyping this. If you see the statements by two American intelligence officials, one is Daniel Coates, the highest intelligence official, Director of National Intelligence, and General Vince Stewart, the head of military intelligence. Both of them had said the current tensions have arisen starting with the Pathankot attack and the subsequent escalation of cross-border attacks by the Pakistan army using Pakistan terrorist groups. This is the testimony of the senior-most American officials. Right. And they say what is happening is that this consistent terrorist attacks, the Indians have made it very clear that it can't be business as usual. They will respond, which is different from what it was earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, categorically telling the Americans we'll respond, and the Americans saying, yes, we can expect, we understand that. This is a totally new paradigm. So I think we are into new territory. As I said, the Pakistan Air Force thing, I take it with a pinch of salt. They can't even fly over.
Someone has to have
they can't fly over
this information that our forward bases have been activated. Where did it come from?
They will be brought down if they fly over the Saltoro range, reach let alone Siachen. And they are careful. During Kargil, when I was High Commissioner, not once did they cross the LOC. Not once.
So there is that distinction between the Army and the Air Force. Let's get in Taha Siddiqui, WION's Pakistan Bureau Chief. Taha, where did these reports come in and what is being said in the Pakistani media about the Indian Army video that talks about punitive strikes at the LOC?
Well, basically today, as you also mentioned in your intro, journalists were flown to Skardu, which is in the Gilgit-Baltistan region, closer to Siachen, where they basically took a bunch of journalists from Islamabad, and over there the air chief was present himself, and as you explained also, he flew a Mirage, and then later on these reports emerged that he had gone to a forward base, and then the forward base have been operationalized and stuff. But then when I spoke to the Pakistan Air Force spokesperson, he denied, saying that this was misreported and misquoted, and also even at the same time a lot of other channels also said the same about it, that this was misquoted by Sama TV, sort of information miscommunication. As far as that video is concerned that Pakistan Army has released with regards to sort of, you know, for these firing upon on the across the border and destroying some checkposts across the border on the Indian side of Kashmir. Again, from what we know, I mean, basically these videos, these claims, these statements, as you mentioned in your intro also, are very hard to verify. The independent access to these areas is not allowed, or very limited, only allowed if you go embedded with the military, and then you have a very controlled access, and as to they show you only what they want to show. But given the environment in Pakistan, the way the media operates, and the way the media covers these issues is usually, as you rightly mentioned, through press statements, and we're just forced to basically, in a way, cover these security affairs on the line of control, security operations, military operations, through these statements without any sort of independent verification. So this constantly happens, and this is how the Pakistani security affairs are reported.
Right, and being a journalist is not easy in Pakistan, Taha, and you for one would testify to that. Ji Parthasarathi, we understand that there is this crackdown on, and there are limitations, and there's only so much that the press is allowed to know and to speak of. But this is the other extreme. You see, this is about someone fabricating, and this is if this is jingoism, how damaging is it?
I'm not surprised. For example, they denied that we had hit across on what we called a surgical strike. It's not a term I use.
Yeah.
But certainly the Americans have now confirmed, both their Director of National Intelligence and their military intelligence chief, that yes, after we got sick and tired, and after the Uri attack, we did head across the line of control at terrorist camps, which is very authentic and accurate, because we never claimed to have hit Pakistan Army posts in November last year. We hit terrorist training camps. In the process, 2 Pakistani soldiers got killed in that surgical strike, but it was not an attack on the Pakistan Army, and our DGMO conveyed that to his Pakistani counterpart. The problem is that you can go to a press conference called by an army commander or the army chief and quiz him. You can't do that in Pakistan.
You can't.
And you can do that with the Prime Minister, yes.
You can do it at your own risk.
Yeah, you can do that. Look what happened to Cyril Almeida.
Look what happened to Taha Siddiqui. He was called for questioning
I
by
know
the
that.
FIA.
But earlier Cyril Almeida, just for writing a story, they wanted him put in the clinker, saying that the civilian government advised the military to cool off on cross-border terrorism.
Yeah. Which is good advice, I say. The military should take it. But Taha Siddiqui, let me ask you this. Then where did this Pakistani counter video, if I may call it, come from? What is the source of it? And after the Air Force denied the activation of forward bases, have those reports been retracted?
Yes, as far as those reports are concerned, they have been retracted in the local media and they're not running it anymore. And even Sama TV, which ran it earlier, had to retract it because that sort of communication came from the top. As far as the video, the counter video, as you're calling it, came, the source of it, basically all journalists in Pakistan are part of this ISPR press release group, which send out videos, press statements, updates, and that's where the video came out from. And I mean, let me tell you, the way they operate is the fact that every time the Pakistani media or journalists, based in Pakistan, get a message from this group of the ISPR, they're also instructed as to make a headline out of it, and it's done in a very sort of they say humble request, but it's coming from the military, so definitely all channels have to toe the line, they have to abide by it. So in that sense, I mean, we've seen what happened, for example, as the other guest was mentioning, with what happened with Cyril Almeida, with the Dawn leaks, or before that with Hamid Mir, when he went after the military. The biggest channel in the country, Jio, was shut down. Blasphemy accusations came up to him. So definitely in Pakistan, there's a controlled narrative and this information management and media management that happens extensively. And anybody who speaks against it, as you mentioned in my own case, I try to report for international papers and international channels, and I've done that for many years. And security affairs is a big thing, and when we talk independently about it, we get intimidated, we get harassed, and we're told that we're crossing a line, but we don't really know where this line is. So it's very, very, very difficult to sort of report about these issues without independently or without the influence of the military.
Now, I will just ask one question, which I think anyone should put to the military. If they did this strike as they claim, could they give us the precise grid reference set of where the Indian post was hit? India will be very happy to take a whole lot of journalists to that grid reference.
That is the question, Taha Siddiqui. Why is the military putting out these fake videos? Are they trying to address a domestic constituency? Are they trying to tell their own people that, look, we are hitting back at India with all our might? Are they trying to build the morale of their own forces? Or is this messaging at India?
It's both, actually. I mean, it's about the perception management when it comes at home. Domestically, Pakistan has been sort of on the back foot with regards to India-Pakistan relations, with what happened with at the ICJ. With Kulbhushan Yadav, Pakistan losing sort of the first round, as we've been covering that. Similarly, Pakistan-India tensions have been high. The last year in November, when the surgical strikes, so-called, from the Indian side happened, at that time also Pakistan came out strongly saying that this, we're a sovereign nation, this cannot happen. So it's definitely a message to the Indian side and also a message to the domestic audience. As far as for the question of asking them about, like, for example, a GPS location or, asking those questions, that would only be possible if a forum like that is provided. Usually it's a one-sided communication and one-sided sort of information being disseminated from the military to the journalists, and it's not a cross-questioning sort of a forum where you can ask questions, you can debate. So given all of that environment, it's really tough to find out more details about this particular video.
Understandably. Taha Siddiqui, I'm told you have to leave. Thanks very much for joining us from Islamabad. G. Parthasarathi, let me ask you this then. Where did this one-upmanship leave an already bad and complicated situation between the two countries?
I think the American intelligence had it right. It's not going to happen. Because it's quite evident that Doval and Jaishankar in their visits have conveyed it cannot be business as usual till terrorism ends. And that we will not show the same patience and forbearance that we had shown in the past. So I think the Pakistanis are also treading into unexpected territory, and India, which sort of always counseled restraint and pulled back. He's now saying enough's enough.
Yeah. And taking Pakistanis by surprise repeatedly. The surgical strike, going to the ICJ and now releasing this video, and they're playing catch up.
Yeah, I think in their case, I would just give them one bit of advice to their public relations guy. You chaps don't know how to morph a video. Go to Bollywood and pick up some of our guys. They'll do a better job.
Good advice, I see. Thank you very much, as always. Good to have you on the show. We're taking a break with that. Still ahead on Gravitas, the latest from Nepal. The Prime Minister there has resigned. We'll tell you what's next.